The previous basket is under review.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the newest episode of the Basket Under Review podcast. I'm your host, Eamonn Brennan of Buzzer at EamonnBrennan.com and Basket Under Review. And guess what? It's true. We have another excellent guest today. We're 5 for 5. His name is Matt Norlander of CBS Sports. We're going to talk to him about a bunch of interesting hoop stuff, momentarily tournament expansion, the best stories of the past 25 years, so much more. First, I'd like to discuss our sponsor, Homefield. Homefield is a very good company that sells the best college apparel in the known universe that I've bought as just like a civilian, like using my own money, long before the prospect of hosting a podcast sponsored by them. Very good company. Anyway, they are full on into their can't miss kickoff promotion for the start of the college football season, featuring weekly drops of new products, boxes, hats, bomber jackets, all kinds of cool Homefieldy stuff. Go check out homefieldapparel.com. and tell them we sent you, or don't. It doesn't matter, but I just like saying that. I said it last week. It felt good. I'm going to keep saying it. Okay. Our guest today is Matt Norlander of CBS Sports, as previously mentioned. He's one of the leading college hoops reporters on the planet. He's also a Guster super fan. He's also a really nice guy, which is why he's here, and we're thrilled to have him on the show. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Eamonn. Great to be with you. Homefield is legit.
They are.
At one point, I think we flirted with having a combo with them and I on college basketball for T-shirts and stuff, but it's becoming a running joke. It's been like 5 years of us not having podcast gear. We may need to just figure that out. But yeah, this is an unprompted and unplanned secondary endorsement. I follow Homefield stuff, and their college football drops that they've been putting on the past week is just. I'm not fans of any of these schools, but some of this gear is just like. It's amazing, and it's kind of like, why wasn't someone around to do this like 15, 20, 25 years ago? It was such an untapped market, and credit to the folks there. They do a really good job, and they have genuinely great feeling apparel. So, yeah, go find them if you can.
Yeah, that's the thing, too, is like I know people who buy their stuff like just blank sweatpants because they're like, they're comfortable.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I thought the whole home field thing was like the logos and stuff, but it's really good stuff. And you're right that like when we went to college, it was like Steve & Barry's or whatever the chain, like discount college apparel stores were. And it was always just kind of whatever stuff. And yeah, Homefield is great. Okay. I want to talk to you about a bunch of stuff today. We got a lot on the rundown here.
Yep.
I want to start with tournament expansion.
Lovely. Let's do it.
You love tournament expansion. You are the number one tournament expansion proponent. In fact, I once heard you say, quietly off to the side of the Final Four, I want it to go to 185 teams. And a lot of people don't know that about you because you maintain this public persona as very anti-tournament expansion. But obviously, in your heart, you yearn for a bigger tournament.
Wow. You're going to make me go Princess Bride this early on the show? What? Let's do it again. No.
There it
How
is.
about Penny? How about Penny?
Stop disrespecting me, bro.
Yeah, we're going nice and early.
Yeah. But no, so you've been reporting this all summer. It's interesting to me the way the process played out. Obviously, they met in Savannah in July to talk about it. The men's and women's basketball committees kind of got kicked down the road in July. They didn't come to any decision amid a big public backlash that I think you probably had a little bit to do with, right? Like you wrote a very strongly worded and researched piece about why this was a terrible idea.
Sure. It wasn't just me, but yes.
It wasn't just you, but you were among many people arguing that please don't do this. Mm-hmm. Right. And so they don't do anything in July. Say, we're going to keep talking about it. A few days ago, what was it, a week ago, something like that, they say, we're going to not talk about it anymore this year. We're going to resume the discussions next year. It's not going to happen for the 2026 tournament, but maybe 2027. Where are you in terms of the folks you're talking to and what the general sentiment is with the committees about how this process played out and where it goes from here?
What a loaded question.
It's a big question. There's
so
a lot of explore the space.
I know. Let's explore the space here. As I feel compelled to just drop a little bit of frame of reference every so often for folks that, you know, they see a headline and like, okay, why are we here to begin with? We're here to begin with because there was a commission more than 3 years ago that looked at Division I sports and the entire enterprise and how it works, its financials, what's working, what's not, where do we have too much bureaucracy, what red tape can be cut. And within that, there was a working group, a smaller committee, that essentially came to the conclusion that every single Division I sport should explore allowing at least 25% of its membership or population to qualify for its championships. Now, if in men's college basketball, that essentially equated to 90 teams max. And when that first came out, now we're a few years removed from that period, but when that came out, there was definitely a lot of Chicken Little with that. But I had sources maintaining from the get-go that 90 was never going to happen. 96 was not even on the table. Didn't stop people from speculating and reporting that maybe it would eventually happen there. But I don't think that's to people that worry about 96. I'm not going to say it'll never happen. I think you and I will be long gone covering the sport by the time they go to a 96 team tournament. I just don't think I've had too many people that have real influence over the sport that insist that it's just not going to get there. So there's been this drawn out process of looking into it. What would this be if we did 80 teams, 76, 72, didn't touch it, all this stuff, right? And then a little more than a year ago, now 13 months ago, it was even more than, it was determined probably privately 14 or 15 months ago that if the tournament was to expand, it would be 72 or 76. That got determined quietly, and then it was shared amongst conference commissioners, and then that news was revealed, I want to say in June of 24. So we've known for a little more than a year that it's either going to stay at 68, go to 72, or go to 76. And even the timeline we're on now is a delayed one from what I thought. If you would ask me in 2022, I would have said we would have had our answer by the end of 24. But here we are in August of 25. We don't really have full resolution on this. When they did not decide in July, I had someone who is not on the committee and wasn't in the room, but is a person of influence in college athletics, insist to me off record that 26 would not be touched. They had gone too far down the road. They probably just had to button up a few things before they made an official announcement, and that inevitably landed here in early August. So they will stick at 68 for 2026, and then the exploration of 2027 beyond remains out there. Where are we at big picture with all this? Still maintain there are people that are making this decision. So that's everyone on the selection committee is technically making the decision, men's and women's. What the men do, the women will do. That's been a complicating factor, which is why we're even here without a decision that's in. And I think there are some on the committee that are definitely in. Some are reserved. And then there are other people that are not on the committee that are involved in college basketball and obviously I think are just confabbing with committee members that are of split mind on this. Obviously, they're very aware that this is an extremely unpopular topic among college basketball fans, let alone the media. We did do this dance 15 years ago. This would have been, EB, I think this would have been year 1 or 2 for you at ESPN when we did this the last time. I remember because I was pinch hitting, so to speak, because I was part-time at Yahoo, where you were at the Dagger before that, working with Eisenberg, and there was a real feeling back then, it's gonna go to 96. And if you actually go back and read the stories,
they were locked in on it.
It was happening, yeah. And the outcry was so. It's interesting. Social media existed, but
kind of.
It did. Twitter did exist. I was tweeting about college basketball under the @CHJournal handle in 2010 when this was all happening. Rob Doster, myself, the Storming the Floor guys. There were college basketball blogs that were there were, and then in addition to mainstream media members at the time. Anyway, the point is the pushback this time I think is close to what it was then, but I think it was still more. I remember a 96 team tournament leading PTI multiple times back then. And then they read the room and they said, okay, here's the compromise, 68. And there was a bunch of stuff that folded into that because then the tournament was going to be broadcast on Turner's networks as well, and everything was going to be available to watch. There was a lot of stuff that folded into that. That's not really the case here.
Right. Well, at the time, not to cut across you, but at the time it felt like the argument was we're negotiating a new broadcast deal. And so more inventory is good for us. And you could kind of understand that from a pure business perspective, even if you hated it.
Right.
right? You could get like, okay, more games, more money. You're negotiating the deal. It at least makes sense. I don't like it, but fine. What makes this year different is that they're like trying to find money to pay for the additional games that they have to host and play because the broadcast deal is set. It's not going to change.
Yes, that is accurate. The women's tournament, for all the rise in popularity over the past half decade in women's college basketball, they still lose millions on the tournament on the women's side every year. And you're not going to do something for one that you're not going to do for the other, whether you think they should or they shouldn't. I'm just telling you, that's the reality with the NCAA. Whatever they do with the men's, they will do with the women's. So expanding to 76.
As well they should, by the way.
Yeah, more power to you, but that presents a significant financial hurdle, which is why this has taken so long. They're trying to figure out a way to validate the decision to expand because they will not expand if it's a proposition where, and I don't have an exact number for you, but theoretically, as one person put this to me like more than a year ago, if they expand the tournaments and expansion comes with a new ledger sheet that shows the NCAA losing $5 million additional dollars into what they have now, they will not expand. Like, they're not going to just expand to appease some ADs and conference commissioners and coaches and then really take another haircut on top of it. That's not going to happen. They need to get close to breaking even, if not trying to get a little bit above water from where they are now. And so now, yes, we're bracing for either later this fall or at some time in the winter, the committee to somehow scrounge up and figure out a way to go to 76. I did report this last week. Been told by multiple sources it's either 76 or 68. They still put out their 72 is on the table, and I guess from an official standpoint it is, but I've been told it is one or the other. It's either stay at 68 or if you're going to expand, make it worth your while, so to speak. Not my while, but that's where we're headed with this ultimately. I do like to think of myself as a fairly optimistic person. I am not all optimistic about this, although I don't give up hope entirely because I do think there are some committee members and even people like Dan Gavitt who's talked occasionally on the record about this. He even said on the record with me back in February, I think it was, where, a couple of years ago, like, he was anti-expanding at all. Didn't want to do it. Was not in favor of it, but knew that he had to go through this process because the NCAA is a bureaucracy of like, okay, well, it's an official recommendation. So every single sport has to, in good faith explore whether they should be expanding their tournaments or not. Everything from men's and women's soccer to lacrosse to whatever. And obviously basketball falls under that. It's by far the most popular because football does its own thing at the D1 level. It's not under the NCAA's purview. And then in February, Gavitt said, but I'm not there anymore. Like, I have looked into the pros and cons of all of this. When it comes to expansion, I'm more open-minded to it now, but he is consistently, because he, even in on-record conversations I've had with Gavitt, he understands, one, how unpopular it is, two, this idea that it's just assumed, like, yeah, they'll just run out the clock and eventually do it. He's not ignorant to that, but he insists that's not what's at play here, and I think that's backed up by the fact of how long it's taken to get to this point. I would, you told me right now we could strike a deal for just 68 through the end of the TV contract. It's up in 2032. They'll enter into renegotiations at the end of the decade, I'm sure. And that will be a fascinating time because it's such an incredible product, obviously, and it's not been open to market. At that point, will not have been open to market for essentially 2 decades. And then we see where we're at. I'd take a bargain there, but they're going to decide before then, which is also interesting to me because we're still in an ever-evolving landscape financially in college athletics. Mike Krzyzewski spoke out about this less than 2 years ago. He said, why would you ehow think about touching the tournament? Think about how perfect it is, and you don't even know what the NCAA is going to look like at this point. When he said this, last March of 24, look how things have changed to this point here in August of 25, let alone what it might be in 27, 28, or 29. Krzyzewski was bang on about that. But yeah, my percentages right now are 75-25 that it will expand. I would strongly prefer it not to for a variety of reasons that I've talked about plenty, written about plenty. We can go into them even more if you want. But you've got the best balance imaginable. You have 32 automatic bids. You have every conference represented, and you have enough of a field where it's big enough where the general public looks at a 68-team tournament and says, like, okay, that's a lot of teams that are in this thing. You've got enough representation. I know the mid-major issue comes up, and I listened to your Pomeroy episode, and I get what he's saying there. I'm just not persuaded by it. I want fewer teams, even at the expense of mid-majors occasionally getting screwed out of it. I'm sorry. I want a 64-team tournament. That's not going to happen. I'll take 68. If you want to go to 69 as a joke, I'm here for it. That's literally the only expansion model that I'm in favor of. If you want to go to 69, that's nice, and that's where I stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think the vast majority of people who are against expansion want it to be a 64-team tournament and are now just standing on the railroad tracks. Stop.
Yeah.
Please stop. But I find that persuasive because I write Bubble Watch every year, and I get just fully sick of the Villanovas of the world or the Cincinnatis, the teams that, for example, this guy named Alan, I don't remember his last name off the top of my head. I'm about to write about on my newsletter his pitch that he sent me. He's been working on a pitch. He's a bracketologist for Crack Sidewalks, the old Marquette blog. And he is pro-expansion and thinks it should be 80 teams because that gives you the format. Same as Ken, by the way.
Yep.
That gives you the format to put, in his view, sort of what the first four is now, spread those games out to each tournament site, reduce the travel. And in his view, the first time I've heard, part of the reason why I'm writing about it is I've never heard anyone make a positive, proactive argument for expansion. It's always just like, it won't be that bad. You'll still watch it anyway. He is actually saying, hey, if you do this, you get a bunch of these 15, 16 seeds that aren't that good, eliminate them early in the process. Now your round of 64 is really cooking. And it's like, at least someone's making an argument. But the problem...
Yeah, but I object to the premise that they're going to do that to 15 and 16 seeds to begin with. But yeah, go ahead.
No, of course. Yeah,
that's going to be
unfair.
what it is in 76, by the way. Like, it's going to extrapolate from the current first four format as I understand it. So you'd still split it, but half the field will be at larges, half the field would be the automatic bids. And when you do that, you actually have to trickle down to 15 seeds in addition to all the 16 being playing games.
For sure. It's unfair. The point is that, like, he's actually making an argument. And I haven't heard that from anyone at the NCAA, any administrator, really any coach. Like, no one has made a strong argument to me about why the structure of the tournament would be better if there were more teams, why it would be better for fans, why it would be better for the broadcast rights, whatever, right? It's just sort of like, hey, we have to increase participation, like, let's and there's no like proactive positive case for this massive change that is super unpopular. And I do think, and I wanted to talk to you about this, obviously people at the NCAA know this is an unpopular idea. How ready were they, in your reporting or your view, for the level of backlash that happened? That even that these discussions were happening, it was like full on. You just have to check Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever, and it was, we hate this, do not do it. And I do wonder if that like swayed some people who were kind of like on it before and are like, well, this seems really super unpopular.
Yeah, I think it had to have at least a little bit of impact. I don't see how it couldn't. Dan Wetzel is as prominent of a sports journalist that exists in our country, and even he took time in the middle of the off season to dedicate a column to it for ESPN.com, which obviously has pretty widespread, expansive reach. Pat Forty did so as well. DeCourcy's written about it previously. I don't know if he did it in the midst of this, but he there's been no shortage of that, in addition just to constant media chatter and podcast episodes and all that. So yeah, I'd like to believe our spirit entered the room and was at least acknowledged, whether consciously or subconsciously, and it's giving them real pause. I do think there are just some people that aren't going to give a damn, and they're just going to do what they want to do, and if they want to expand it, they're going to try and push it through for what they think is the benefit of their coaches and their ADs. But even when I went on the road in July and went to a couple of recruiting events, and this is just like a small sampling. Like, I talked to Dan Hurley, I talked to John Shire, I talked to Nate Oates, talked to Kelvin Sampson, who at first was like, I want what's best for coaches. So I think that means expanding. And then he was kind of like talking through the whole thing.
Sounds like Kelvin.
But he's like, but the more teams you get in, if you don't get in, what does that mean? And I do think this is a careful what you wish for situation for coaches. Because not only if you don't get in, with money on the line with players, I think coaching tenures are, over the next 10 years, about to enter into their harshest level of turnover that we've ever seen, and it won't even be close. I actually think getting in but not getting to Thursday or Friday will become problematic as well. I think you're really tempting a lot of toxicity from fan bases over this, whereas it's still like the tournament is still an achievable goal, but it's still tough enough. You talk about your bubble watch. Even if you go and look at the teams that would be like 80 or 81 in the pecking order, it is vomit-inducing. Like there's no compelling case to be made that the teams that would be floating near the cut line in a 76-team field are tournament worthy. They're just not. There have been 2 cases where VCU and UCLA, one of which was under bubble circumstances, obviously in 2021 when we had everything in Indianapolis, have gone from the first 4 to the Final 4. And those are great stories. They're great. But neither of those teams were actual national championship contenders. And if you're really playing against the numbers, you run every team that's gone to the first 4 and what their overall hit rate is. They've had plenty of teams that have been able to win one, and then they win on Thursday or Friday, but it's not like every other year we're dotted with these teams, making regional final runs. That's not what's happening there. So I think there are real negative downsides. And the other thing is that everyone acknowledges that it's about getting to what won't change is when Thursday at noon hits and you're watching The Price is Right wrap up, okay, and Drew Carey's on your television and we have a 64-team bracket. That's what everyone cares about, right?
Right.
So we're just trying to cram in more inventory on Tuesday and Wednesday for who, for what, let alone the travel turnaround for these teams that have to play Tuesday and Wednesday, which is already tough. Now you're going to complicate it even more.
So I can gamble on it, Matt. What are you talking about here? Of course.
Exactly.
Think about how much more inventory
I do wonder.
Here.
Yeah, not that will obviously it will be heavily gambled upon, but I do wonder when it comes to just the way the bracket looks and then getting your picks in. Some people kind of just dismiss that stuff out of hand. I don't. I actually think there's been a very carefully cultivated format and formula for what makes the tournament work and why college basketball takes over essentially a month. And the bigger you make the tournament, the less special you make the regular season, which already has issues with relevancy. You're asking for it, but maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they'll make the right decision and keep it at 68. I'd love to see that, but there's enough people with real power in college athletics that they want to go to 76. And as one person told me earlier this year, expanding doesn't take a great tournament and make it not great. And I said, actually, it degrades it by the pure process of diluting it. So some are of the mindset it's like, we're not going to ruin the tournament by expanding it. No, but there's this insistence in American sports, and maybe it's really globally as well. I'm not as keyed in on worldwide football like yourself.
Despite your insistence of using the word sacking.
Oh, yeah, that's never.
Coaches get fired.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I'm confusing it. But we're never satisfied. It's always got to be one thing. I just got to add on and add on and add and just push consumers to their absolute maximum in terms of sports, and that's also annoying to me as well.
Yeah, I get it. All right, so real quick thought experiment, and then we can go to our next topic. So the teams in the 80-team field that my guy Allen put together, if his format were adopted, that didn't get in the tournament last year. West Virginia probably should have been in the tournament. Yeah. Indiana, Ohio State, Boise State, SMU, UC Irvine, San Francisco, Dayton, Cincinnati, Villanova, Nebraska, Wake Forest. Now,
Wake Forest
is a tough sell.
Let me bring up KenPom here. Hold on one second. I'm going to say Wake Forest was not a top 60 KenPom team last year. Hold on. Let me look at this.
Oh, they might have been. But they
were not. They were 72nd, Eamonn.
There you go.
They were 72nd.
Now, they turned down the NIT, but they're his last team. Nebraska, Villanova, Cincinnati. Those are the teams that I look at, and I'm like, you have to get people to be okay with those teams being in the NCAA tournament.
Dude, we bitch about the teams that get in a 68-team field. This is it's going to be insufferable. It will be.
Yeah. Well, and look, if you get rid of most of them on Tuesday and Wednesday and put them all at the sites.
That's the whole point, though. Get rid of them. If that's the approach, then we shouldn't be expanding to begin with. That's the whole point.
But if this is all a great run, Matt.
If this is all just to make a few more coaches and schools and fan bases feel better about getting in before you just kick them out of the field because they wouldn't get in 68-team tournament, then what's the point?
It's about access, Matt.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I wrote about that.
It's about access. Anyway.
So in that model, we can move on. But so even like to the point of getting more mids in. So even in that model, like
Irvine, USF,
yeah,
Dayton, kind of.
kind of.
SMU doesn't count anymore.
But even like George Mason, which was good last season, doesn't get in.
No.
Yeah. And by the way,
But
that's a charitable,
that's
that's a
just
charitable way
his-
of looking at it.
That's just his bracketology. Who knows how it would play out. But I do think if you're going to expand, the format he presented, I'm going to write about it in detail, is better than 76. If you're going to expand, just put your chest out there and do it, as opposed to just like, oh, we're going to 72, we're going to do 4 more teams. Just expand the tournament if you're going to expand the tournament. Or don't. And please don't. I prefer that it wouldn't be expanded. But, if you're going to do it, actually do it. Okay, let's move on to our next thing.
Let's do it.
You wrote a story about the top 25 stories of the past 25 years of college basketball this summer.
Yep. Top 25 and 1. Shouts to Gary Parrish, who gave me real
top
shit.
25 and 1.
Real shit because this list was, in a very fun way, torture to narrow down. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say the list starts at the start of the 2000-2001 season, and that'll be my excuse for not putting the firing of Bobby Knight. And then every time we podcast about it, he wouldn't shut up about it. So I said, fine, we'll go top 25 and 1, and you decide where Bob Knight's firing goes on the list. It's quite clearly a top 10 story. Anyway, continue.
Big deal.
Huge deal. If you, the youngins checking in on the pod that were not born, let alone, or if you were born by that point, but if you weren't even, Bob Knight's firing was national newsworthy stuff.
Massive deal.
Yes, very, very big stuff.
The war stories told at the Indiana Daily Student, even when I was there, I enrolled in 2003. So like 3-4 years later, were legendary. Like a huge deal. There were riots on campus. It was a massive thing. And a descent of national camera crews to come watch him speak. Like he's like a national political figure or something.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
It was on someone's. I can't remember where it was on campus. We don't have to digress on this too much, but I want to say it also happened at night. There was a lot going on. Yeah, there's a lot happening.
Oh yeah, they broke the fountain. One of the big fountains. Students like rioted and broke it, and they had to fix it. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it did happen. Yeah, this was a real head trip for me going back down these lists. I mean, Steph Curry stuck out to me because that was just right as I was writing for Yahoo, really early days, like as a freelancer. I remember posting a photo of his Nike shoes that he wrote a Bible verse on, like the day after they came close to beating Kansas, stuff like that. You also posted a list of the stories that did not make the cut.
Yes.
Which I think are as interesting, if not more interesting. Rick Pitino at Louisville, his whole sex scandal thing.
I know.
Massive deal.
I know. It
did not make the top 25. Talk us through some of the...
Oh, boy. This is not easy.
Great, I shouldn't say great, newsworthy stories that did not make the top 25.
So I put... And I think I might have had one mistake on that. You do this, you're trying to pull back and look back and all this stuff. But I had Louisville losing its 2013 national title as a sub story. But I think that was tied to the sex scandal. But in my mind, chronologically that happened after Louisville, while being on probation, got busted for having an assistant tied up in the FBI scandal.
Yes, that's correct.
Louisville losing it. It's the only school that's ever had its national championship vacated. It's obviously a very big story, and that story is within the top 5. And as I was building this out, I wanted to try and avoid doubling up stuff as much as I possibly could, unless it was just undeniable, like Brad Stevens leaving for the Celtics and Butler going to back-to-back national championship games. Those are two separate stories. They are unquestionably, both of them, 2 of the 25 most important stories of the past 25 years. They just are. But the top 2 on the list were the Rick Pitino sex scandal and then the NBA. See, I didn't include this one because it was a college basketball story, but the NBA dictated the story, and it was the age limit rule, which brought about one and done. Obviously, that was a thread that just, wormed through college hoops for the past 2 decades. ultimately I made an editorial decision not to include it because it only existed because of the NBA. But it was undeniably a college basketball story. So that didn't make the list. The sex scandal, the Rick Pitino stuff, obviously. Kemba Walker and UConn winning the 2011 national title. That's the first title that I ever covered in person. The worst title game ever, but Kemba, obviously, that was a big one. I have UConn winning back-to-back. That's on the list. The season we just had with the SEC was on the list. 14 bids. Florida wins it. Best year for a league ever. Even stuff like, I won't go down the full list, but you've got, I had 2 conference realignment stories in, and I didn't include the most recent bout of it because it was just the latest blow where we went to 16 and 18 team conferences. The Pac-12 got killed off. You can make a case that should be there. Zach Edey didn't make the list. He's the first 2-time National Player of the Year in back-to-back seasons in 4 decades, and Purdue made the title game. There's even more. Like, you can read off some of the stuff if you want. But it was a
Larry Eustace.
Larry Eustace. There were
That's
some of them.
the one.
Larry Eustace getting caught drinking at a frat party after a game at Missouri, and that didn't make the list. Obviously, it led to his ouster at Iowa State, and I think that was even a thing because, for reasons I can't remember, Eustace did not travel with the team for some reason or another, and I can't remember all the details of that, but he only put himself in that position because he did not take it's not like the rest of the team was on campus. The team went back. He did not. That's circa, what was it, 03, 04, something like that? Yeah, wild story.
That story, growing up in Iowa, was triple platinum. That's the biggest story of my young adult life, was Larry Eustace in the photographs that were passed on on
broken
AIM
by a newspaper, kids,
however.
by the way. Literally, story broke because it was printed in a newspaper, if you want to flash back to a different time.
Go go to the Library of Congress and check that story out. But I mean, like, you've got Bernie Fine. That was a big deal.
Very big deal. Very big deal. Yes.
Like, people don't remember. Remember Boeheim flipped out at Andy?
Yes.
At that press conference because he dared to ask him a question about it. It was like a whole thing.
I had to go to the press conference. I drove from Connecticut to Syracuse to go to the press conference. And I remember there was a whole thing between Boeheim and Katz. They've since patched it up, but that was a big,
it was an all-time Jim, I don't think you're making this any better, buddy. Like, it's this, it doesn't. You're not doing great here. If I was a PR guy, just not that he had one.
What else is on the list or not that you
Grayson Allen tripping people?
Felt
Love
in the
that.
moment, I would have told you it was one of the 25 biggest stories, but now we were a little bit removed. I can't put it on the list, but Grayson Allen can't stop tripping people was just
a huge deal. I loved that. Reading this list, I was like, that was a huge deal, and it was really crazy that he kept doing this.
Yes, and then he got an indefinite suspension that lasted 1 game.
Yeah, he got suspended for 1 game, and did he trip someone after that? I don't know if he did.
Entirely possible. I think he's had a couple of dust-ups in the NBA as well. How about stuff like the scandals, Greg Marshall getting fired? Yeah. I remember the Mike Rice one because that was 2013. I remember that because it got exposed because I went to the Final Four early that year because I wrote a story about what it takes to logistically get the football stadium ready for Final Four. So my regional, I think I was in Dallas because then Dallas had the 14 title game. So I'm almost positive that was a Friday, Sunday. And then I was just like, I'll just go right from Dallas to Atlanta. Anyway, I remember that because I remember being in my hotel room at that Marriott Marquis in Atlanta on that Monday or Tuesday. And then nothing was about the Final Four. It was all about the videos of Mike Rice throwing basketballs at his players. So even stuff like that, which didn't make the list, but that was, and rightfully so, like an extremely big story.
Yeah. That was on the Today Show.
Yes.
It was a huge story, and it didn't make the top 25. I think NCAA killing the RPI, this is a nerd thing that we care about, that maybe the mass public, it's not going to make the Today Show.
Still
but
huge.
That was a big deal.
The way they build and select the tournament was changed in the past 25 years significantly, and I tossed in the modern analytics movement. There are cases for a lot of these stories that didn't make the list to be on the list, and I think that's one of them personally.
Yeah, I mean, how long did we complain about hey guys, the RPI is not fair. It's not good. It was made in the 70s or whatever, and it's fine. You like it, but there's a lot of other stuff you could be using. And then they were just one day it felt like, yeah, cool. Yeah. We're going to do that now. It was great. Okay. All right. I want to play a quick game with you.
Okay.
I'm calling it the Bart Torvik game.
Okay.
He is not.
We're switching off topics now. If you have not
We're
read the top
switching
25 one
topics.
stories, just Google my name, CBS Sports. You'll find it, and you can.
Yeah, they're all
you
there.
can all check it out. Yep.
People know where your work is.
I would think so.
We're pulling up Bart Torvik. Here's the premise of the game.
Okay.
We're pulling up Bart Torvik. And you said pre-show you don't look at Bart's rankings
I
because you don't want to be
I try
influenced
not
when
to
you
be
do your own.
informed. Correct. Every October, it used to be, kids, I used to rank every single damn team in the sport, which I enjoyed. But
He did.
the transfer portal changing that became impossible because I would hit up coaches in leagues and be like, okay, top 2-3 teams, like just give me your vague order, and most of the times coaches could do this, and then no one knows who's on these rosters. So then it's literally idiotic. For
Even the
a human
coaches
to do
don't
it,
know.
You can't do it. So I do top 101. Feel like I can get a decent enough 101 dart throws, but I don't look at Torvik. I usually try and beat Pomeroy to publishing his ranking. Sometimes he beats me. Past 2 years, I think I've been done for like a week, and then within the week of me being done to them publishing, Pomeroy's rankings have come out, yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera. This is way too long of a lead up, but I don't know what you're about to ask me, and I don't know who's who, where's where, what's what on Torvik right now.
We're going on vibes.
Okay, vibes.
This is pure vibes. He has, let's see, I'm just going to pick one off. Gonzaga at 24, over or under.
Seems low. Gonzaga at 24 seems low to me.
I agree. That's why I picked them. That was a very leading question.
Here's your Gonzaga Ken Pom finish over the past 10 seasons. Most recent to not. 8, 12, 8, 1, 1, 2, 2, 10, 1, and 21 back in 2015-16. Until I see the slip, I don't know where I will put Gonzaga, but I will not allow myself to put them lower than 15 or 16 on principle. I just won't allow myself to. I have to see it at this point. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and he has North Carolina at 18. And I don't know what Bart's formula is and how he weights program ranks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That might have something to do with North Carolina being 18th because I don't see them as the 18th best team in the country. And I have talked about them on almost every episode of this podcast at this point. So I just don't want to keep hanging out.
Gotcha.
But okay. St. John's 8.
8's fine
under.
to me. My buddy GP has been taking some hits for his St.
What
John's.
did he say?
He's got St. John's number 1.
Oh.
And I embrace this because I like to have, I think it's good for college basketball media to have some real differing of opinions on who should be the number 1 team heading into the season. And Parrish has had St. John's number 1 since the second week of May, maybe even before that. And he hasn't budged, and good on him. You know what? Good on him. St. John's to me, I won't have him 1, but the point guard thing I got to figure out. That's going to prevent me from putting him top 4. But I would say St. John's anywhere from 5 to 10, I think, has to be the move. You said they're 8.
Point guards don't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's
Have
also.
you not heard that?
Hey, I will say this. Eamon's obviously referencing something that Patino said at his media availability last week. If St. John's makes a Final Four and doesn't have we get to that point, it's yeah, they kind of haven't been doing this for the point guard. If he does this, man, it's going to be just the ultimate.
He's going to
on a ridiculous career.
Patino is going to stun people. I mean, this is a topic I do want to get to if we have time, although we're running out of time.
We got time.
But coaches that are in the most interesting moment of their career, I think he's kind of top of the list almost. But back to the Torvik game.
Yep, vibes. Let's go.
Pure vibes. Tennessee 13.
I'm good with it. Pure vibes. I'm good with it. Yep.
Interesting. I would say higher.
I think Nate Ament could be quite good, but if you told me he wasn't one of the 7 or 8 best freshmen in the country, I wouldn't be surprised. It's just, based on other freshmen that I've seen. We'll see though. Maybe he'll walk in and be incredible, but I'm good with 13.
I just feel like their defensive baseline plus Gillespie.
Sure.
It's hard for me to imagine them being lower than the 7th or 8th best team in the country.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Vanderbilt 21.
Wow. I mentioned this on a podcast last season. I had someone in an NBA front office text me. No, we talked on the phone. I can't remember why we were talking, but I was watching Vanderbilt play. So we were talking on a random Tuesday, Wednesday night or whatever, and I was watching Vanderbilt play. And the guy goes, he didn't even, if he knew his name, he didn't say, he's like, that guy there, that guy at Vanderbilt, he could coach in the NBA one day. And I was like, you really think so? He's like, yeah. I was like, damn. He's got quite a good rep, Mark Byington. 21.
Very good basketball coach.
Yeah. 21 feels lofty. No, that is
that's very high.
That is lofty. I like
Mike
Torvik
James. my guy, Mike James, one spot above Michigan State at 22.
I'm good with MSU there.
Yeah.
I need to try and forget these. Although Vandy at 21, I will not put Vandy top 30. I'll tell you that right now. It's not happening. Trust me. I had Auburn. You're talking to the guy who had Auburn 27 last year. How about this? So I had Auburn 27 last year, famously, because I do try and do a little like, maybe this team, maybe that team. I was way wrong. I was wrong. Okay, I'm gonna even pull the board. Where's my drop here? I'm gonna do it right now to myself. Where am I? I got all sorts of stuff here. Where'd it go? Is it gone? I got this one. This has nothing to do with it. How about this?
2 rings, Baldy.
2 rings, Baldy. Dan Hurley's still on the board. I had a that one's on me. I was wrong. Where did it go? There we go. That one's on me. I was wrong. Okay, I had Auburn 27, and then I did a shoot around pod with CBS last week with the Weave guys. And Jim Root, who I guess after the show amended his rankings, but he had Pearl 6th, and then I heard from the Auburn staff, and they said your 27 ranking was more acceptable than this. I was like, all right, fair enough.
Pearl 6th of what?
In the SEC, power ranking the coaches.
Ooh,
The Weave guys power ranked the SEC coaches. They had Pearl 6. The Root had him 6. Kai had him 2. Matty Cox dodged the pot altogether. I'm gonna assume he had Pearl like 9 or 10. But yeah, anyway. Anyway, the point is this. Digressing again. There's always a couple of teams every year where I'm earnestly trying to project what these teams will be, and there's always a couple teams that wind up getting overhyped. I didn't buy into Auburn last year. I was way wrong. And maybe that will be me with Vanderbilt if I don't put them top 25, top 30.
yeah. Speaking of Auburn, Bart has them 26th.
They're coming for you, Torvik. They haven't found you yet, but they will. They're coming for you.
They will find you, Bart. Up
They're
there in
gonna find
Wisconsin, buddy. They're going to get you.
Give me a few more. What do we got?
To be fair, he has his Badgers at 30.
Badgers, okay.
The Badgers are 30th.
I think that's probably fair.
Virginia, 35th. Now, that's a potential stock I could maybe buy.
Yeah. Virginia's got a ton of buzz. I think that's going to be ACC is now an 18-team league. That'll be a top third of the league team, I think. And coaches in that league, I just wound up talking to a couple on the road in the ACC. Tons of intrigue and expectations for Virginia. And how about lay this one on me? Where's NC State? Something NC State will be a top 3 team in the league next season. I don't know if I can go that far, but there are some who think that.
I mean, I think NC State's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on the Will Wade bandwagon right now. Like, I just think the talent assembled and his ability to kind of, massage it. And I said this on a previous podcast with Will Warren. I think I'm most interested in him as like a tactician going forward, because I think as a recruiter of talent, he's doing really well, obviously, right? Like the team is good. It's talented, but putting it together, making it work, and the sort of game to game, moment to moment adjustments you have to make if you're a top coach in the ACC is like the thing I'd like to see, because I think his LSU days, he had some of that, but most of it was, we're just super talented and we're just going to ball on you. And that's it. And so I'm really interested to see, because this team is, the fact that they got Darian Williams is crazy. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. Like, come on. Why does NC State have Darian Williams on the team? So
I think he's the most. They got some dudes there. They got Holloman. They got Arsenal from Houston, who's ready to break out.
He said Venell and Lubin.
Well, we'll see. But
is going to be the best player of all time.
Like, Williams has a chance. If he makes an even bigger jump, like, he could be one of the 5 best players in the league. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be one of the 5 best players in the country.
Woo! You said it.
I did say it.
All right.
But this is also coming from someone who knows nothing about the incoming recruiting class, right? Like, I don't know any freshmen.
Talking about with NC State
kind
or
of
nationally?
design. Just everybody.
Well,
You know
about some of the big names.
Yeah, the big ones. But like, even a guy last year like VJ Edgecombe, I was like, oh yeah, I heard he's good. Like, I'm not watching his
There's going to be
EYBL
dudes,
tape or whatever.
Real quick on this, I'll take us off the off ramp and get us back.
Let's
on the
do
highway.
it.
This year's freshman class, last year's was really good. This year's could be better. Darren Peterson, AJ DeBanza. This is in order at 247.
Well,
Darren Peterson at
yeah.
Kansas, DeBanza at BYU, Cameron Boozer at Duke, Nate Amenett's 4th at Tennessee. I actually think Darius Acuff at Arkansas will be better. Mikhail Brown Jr. at Louisville, who has had an incredible lead up to the season. Chris Senack at Houston will get run. Caleb Wilson, probably going to be the highest drafted one-and-done player out of Carolina in a generation. Braden Burries will get real run at Arizona. And then you get to 10 Elijah Arenas, who's now hit some setbacks there. But Koa Pete at Arizona, boss. Braylon Mullins going to get real run there. And then after that, we kind of wait and see. But there's guys like even Trey McKinney, who's 21 at Michigan. He'll get run. Caden Boozer's 23, but he's going to obviously be a factor. Jasper Johnson expected to make an impact at Kentucky. I do think we are going to have a very entertaining and very productive freshman class. I'm excited for it. Yeah.
I'm excited for that as well. Speaking of Kansas, where are you on Kansas?
Okay. Well, first of all, where's Torvik?
Bart has them 17th.
Kansas is fascinating because the past 2 seasons, it was preseason number 1 and vastly underperformed that, which was a counter to everything we knew Kansas to be for most of the past 20 years leading up to that. And now, with a big reduction in expectations, Kansas was a 7 seed last year. They brought in this guy. I don't know. They've got Peterson, who Self has said is the best recruit he's ever brought on campus, which is an insanely bold statement. But Bill Self doesn't just say stuff like that either.
No, he doesn't.
That's immense praise.
Sometimes he does.
Like that, though? Whew.
Sometimes he says stuff like that.
They bring back Flory Badunga, who I actually do think will have some games where he's a monster.
Yeah.
Marco Jackson.
I think Flory's really good.
Yep. He could be among the. Let me see real quick here. How many minutes a game did he average last year? I call him a breakout candidate, but we'll see what he.
I bet it's like 10.
He averaged 16.3. Doesn't qualify. Sorry, more than 15 minutes a game, you're not a breakout candidate. That's the law.
How did he get 60 minutes a game with Hunter just gobbling up all the post touches?
I know.
And NIL money.
But yeah, they got this Cole Rosario player who's apparently going to be impactful. Melvin Council Jr. from Bonaventure, Jaden Dawson from Loyola Chicago, and then Trey White from Illinois. I'll be interested to see how those guys produce. And then Marco Jackson was someone who I really liked as a recruit, and then he missed the entire season due to injury. Now he comes aboard. I think Kansas will I'll put it this way. I think Kansas will outperform its preseason. If Kansas is 16 or worse at Torvik, Pomeroy, and the AP poll, I think by the time we get to the end of the NCAA tournament, Kansas will outperform that ranking the first week of April.
Okay.
But I know some Kansas fans are like, okay, has Bill lost his fastball? Is this the year? All this stuff. He recently just had a major, or at least a very important heart procedure, and he's doing well. I heard from him a few days ago. But I wouldn't take that to mean that he should. And no coach retiring would shock me, but I don't necessarily think that 2 down seasons combined with some heart issues means that we should be bracing for Bill Self to retire next April. I wouldn't be stunned, but I'm not exactly. I don't think that's the more likely scenario right now.
Who would Kansas even hire?
I know
There's a.
Gosh, we're really getting to this in the second week of August, DB.
Yeah.
Kansas right now. Let's just do it for fun. Why not? Okay, so who would be if Kansas had to hire a coach in March or April of 26?
McCasland.
He'd be on the list. There's so many variables that, in terms of I don't know what Nate Oates' buyout drops to. He would be on the list. You'd have if Altsberger was really, really good again, even though it's the same league, he'd be on the list. Tommy Lloyd would be on the list. Some guys are not moving, like Painter wouldn't move. I'm trying to think about who else would be on the list.
Not few, obviously.
Dusty conceivably on the list. Who else? I don't know.
Buzz Williams.
Not on the list. Not on the list.
Hater.
I guess Dan Hurley conceivably on the list, but not on the list.
I mean, they would try to talk to him,
yeah,
but he would say no.
Yeah. The dude's
Brad
not living in
Underwood.
the middle of Kansas. I'm sorry, it's not happening.
It's not.
After that, it gets Kansas fans. You don't want this issue, and I don't think you're going to have it. As we just kind of run down. I mean, eventually, vacancies come open, they got to get filled.
Yeah.
We figured Indiana might open, but was DeVries? That's the guy now, and now that he's there, we haven't seen him coach a game. It's like, okay, yeah. I can see it. How about let me turn it on you. IU alumnus, Indiana. What's the vibes?
I don't think they have a front court. I was a little confused. I think the transfers fit better, much better than they did last year, and he's an actual basketball coach or a college basketball coach
Mm-hmm.
relative to Mike Woodson. All due respect, program legend, not a great basketball coach. And I think the talent that they have is fine, but not like once the roster was in place, I think they were waiting on Luke Goody for a potential waiver. It didn't happen. I thought maybe there was one more shoe that was going to drop, like one of the late transfers that was in the draft, like your Darian Williams types, PJ Haggerty, these guys, because the word is they're spending a ton of NIL money.
Yep, north of $10 million for sure.
You look at the roster, and a little bit like North Carolina, not quite to the same level, because I do think the roster makes sense to a certain extent. But you look at the roster and you're like, you spent $10 million on this? Like,
there's a couple of those out there.
The coach's son is the best player,
which is nothing against him because he's
he deserves to be. He's a great player, and if he wasn't the coach's son, and you got him in the transfer portal,
then
you'd be like, wow, what a get! Like this is huge.
Right.
But you look at the rest of the roster, and you're just like, interesting, but not $10 million interesting.
Will Ben McCollum have a better year one than Darren DeVries?
Probably. I mean,
Ben McCollum might have a better player too, by the way.
He's got one of the best players in the country.
Yeah.
He can run his entire system through one guy who is one of the most talented players in the country. And Bart has them at 38th.
Iowa?
And yeah, I could go higher on that.
I will be higher on Iowa than that. Where's Indiana?
42.
Okay. So not much daylight between the two.
Iowa, one spot ahead. NC State. Two of the most interesting preview teams in the country. IMO. We've got a couple more minutes.
Coaches?
I want to talk to you about Guster.
Oh, okay. We can talk Guster.
Holler at me about Guster.
Why do you want to talk about Guster?
I saw Guster at a frat house in 2003, 2004.
Seems
and I like
unlikely
them.
they would have played at a frat house at that point in their career, but I'll
They did.
They did. Although they're willing to do
telling you a
anything. This is a
fact.
band that will play for free as a joke outside of a dumpster in a random city they're touring in. So they're up for anything. They're the best.
They're the best.
Hold on. I'm going to find the set list for you. Where was it? What was it? In Indiana?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You keep going. I'm going to look it up for you. So it doesn't. If I don't find it, doesn't mean they didn't do it. But yeah, I'm going to see.
I was there.
You were there.
I promise.
Were you a genuine Guster fan, or did you just happen to find yourself there?
No, I was a fan, actually, because I went and saw them in Milwaukee at Summerfest, like the semester between my high school senior year and freshman year of college, I think.
Okay.
I think they were opening for OAR, which
Of a
is a likely
Revolution?
thing for them to be doing.
That was a crazy game of poker.
Yeah.
Mr. Moon by OAR. Legit song, though, by the way. Let's see. So it would have been Bloomington?
Mm-hmm.
Not coming up in
I love how you have
2002
the
or
whole-
2003. You were in college.
I was in college from 03 to 07.
Bloomington not coming up. Blast. Okay. Wait, now that's why it's not coming up. Oh, sorry. It's only a certain amount of set list per page. That's why. I'm just genuinely... So Keep It Together, probably their second best record, came out in 2003. So like 2003 would have been a big year for them. That's why I said
Yeah.
that. I'm still looking. What time of year do you think it was?
Oh, brother. Would have been probably early fall.
Okay, early fall. I'm going to go back.
Or it could be Little Five, which would be in the spring.
So it could have been spring of 04?
Mm-hmm. Possibly.
I'm looking at 03. We're going back. There's Cincinnati here, Chicago, Portland, Maine, 2003. Big year for them. By the way, this is epic podcasting right now.
Yeah,
I don't
audio is
I don't care.
legit.
Let's see. I'm not finding. Hold on. Canada, New York, Des Moines, Boise, Walla Walla, Washington.
I'm telling you, man. I saw them.
I believe you.
You got to take my word for it.
I believe you. Anyway, keep going. What were you going to say about them, other than that you saw them?
How did it feel to become a viral meme because of your Guster love?
It felt weird, although I had known the band well before this, so it was surreal and unintended. But if you're unfamiliar, what Eamonn is referring to is the fact that at Coach K's final game of his historic career, the reason why this even happened is outrageous. Okay, so they have these stools that are afforded to the coaches at the Final Four because everyone else is a step below because it's a raised court. But the coach needs to stand up and bark out orders, but they provide them with stools in case they want to sit. Well, Mike Krzyzewski's like 75 years old. He's the only coach that has ever like outright used the stool, and he chooses to use the stool and put it right in direct sight of my Guster is for Lover sticker. And so for the entirety of the first half, like every single shot of Mike Krzyzewski is his face with the Guster is for Lover sticker behind him, which caused my computer nearly to melt. But it was those dudes are the best. They invited me on stage. Actually, as we speak right now, as we tape this podcast, every year Guster does an On the Ocean thing in Portland, Maine. One of their band members lives in Portland, Maine, and it's a whole Guster-oriented music festival. And in 2022, they literally updated their promotional content to include Matt Norlander and his laptop. And I did appear, and I walked on stage 10 songs into their set, and they had a 6-foot table set up with a March Madness logo on it, and I sat there as if I was covering the tournament, and it was a great, great time. And they are the best. And Guster, they have an old B-side that's like 20 years old, and we took a while to push everything through, but I selected it to be the intro music for the Eye on College Basketball podcast. And this weekend, they played that song. His name is Timothy Leary is the name of the song. They'd only played it like 2 times ever, and they busted it out. And basically they only did it because I pulled it out of the cobwebs and out of the mothballs, and here we go. So I appreciate it.
And that's the theme for the podcast?
Yes. An old Guster B-side from the 2000s is now the intro music to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball
I love
podcast.
that.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
All right, Matt, thank you.
No, we're not out of here. You're not cutting me loose. Coaches in good spots. Let's go. Interesting spots.
You want to do it?
Let's do it.
All right. Coaches in interesting moments in their career.
Yeah.
Either positively or negatively.
It's a long list, by the way.
It's a very long list. It's an interesting list. Give me your number one.
Ah, gosh, number one. All right, I'll abide by the question. Which coaches in
Bill
the
Self, who we already talked about, was my number one.
He's your number one. Okay. Yeah. After much deliberation, I'm gonna have to go Earl Grant at Boston College. No, just kidding. Obviously, it's Tim Miles at San Jose State. And if not for him, you're telling me Tom Pecora at Quinnipiac doesn't really get the juices flowing. I will say the number one most interesting to me is there are so many options. This is why I love the sport, man. There are so many answers to this question. I'm going to say Shaka Smart. This dude has just shunned the portal, and it has, for the most part, worked in his favor. But he did it again, and this is really where, like, the method is up against it. Can you be, like last year Marquette was a 7 seed. Let's say 6. Can you be a 6 seed or better again? Can you do this again? Have you been able to retain a roster and recruit incoming freshmen and be able to do this to the point where you are a top 3 level program in the Big East? And can you push against the currents of the sport in a way that no one else is trying to do? Not even Painter necessarily is doing exactly what Shaka is doing here. He would be my number one, but let me just run down a few more here. John Shire is on the list because is he in year 4 of what will be a 25 season career of this? Like, will this just be what it always is? Or did he just have the best team he's ever going to have? And even if he wins a title, no one's going to top what he just had last year when they didn't win it. Kelvin Sampson came as close as possible to winning a national championship. Didn't happen. Now he's going to have maybe the preseason number 1 team. How much more can this guy do this? Getting so close. He's right up against it. Been 4 straight top 2 finishes in KenPom. Here we go again. You've got certain coaches that have really good teams that could be within 1 to 3 years of retiring. That's Pearl, that's Barnes, that's Self, that's Izzo potentially, that's Few potentially. There's just a lot of those out there. Which coaches are, one more good year or one more flop away from retiring? Calipari is always interesting no matter what is happening because he's John Calipari. So there's a lot there. Who else? Hubert Davis is obviously, he's on the hot seat, so he's maybe not the most interesting, but where does that line delineate for him in terms of keeping his job versus not? How good does UNC need to be versus not? This is a hot seat season, has to make the tournament, obviously. I would argue it's got to be more than that. I think you probably need to be wearing home whites on that Thursday or Friday.
Deep run.
Yeah, so you probably have that. That's pretty intriguing. I mean, but to repeat myself, this is why I love the sport, because there are so many coaches that I find to be in fascinating. Sean Miller at Texas, is he about to enter into the phase of his career where he returns to, like top 10 coach in the sport status? Or did he leave a situation with Xavier where he was going to be empowered to a certain degree by revenue sharing that he won't have at Texas on the books in an official capacity, and now he's in
on the books,
and now he's in a tougher league. So what Miller's doing there is super intriguing to me. McCollum at Iowa, he's been as successful as any coach over the past 10 years in the sport, but it's been mostly in D2. So there's Wade at NC State. There are so many. It's awesome. We have this waterfall of storylines that just won't stop, and I think it's so great to be able to cover. Maybe this exists to a similar level in college football, but I don't feel like it does. And this kind of coaching stuff is not nearly as potent or prominent in the professional sports either. And it's a pro and a con for college basketball that the coaches are the biggest stars for the most part. But you look left, you look right, you look up, you look down, in front and behind you. There's one intriguing thing after another. Dan Hurley is never not interesting. So that's why I do think college basketball is in a fairly healthy spot overall. I mentioned this with the Weave guys. I think we might be heading toward our best non-conference slate that we've had in the sport in 10, 12, maybe 15 plus years. So there's just a lot of things working in the sport's favor, and I think we have a pretty special season upcoming here.
Yeah, it's the sport on the floor is in a fantastic spot. Like, the Final Four was amazing. The tournament, there weren't as many upsets as some people like, but it was really good.
I think we get a little bit
high quality college basketball throughout the season and throughout the tournament, and the chaos off the floor, whether it's tournament expansion or conference realignment or revenue sharing or whatever else, seems to not yet have had a huge effect on where the sport is actually played, thankfully. One coach, Cincinnati, Wes Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Big year for Wes Miller.
Very big.
Super important year. Okay, that's going to do it. Matt, thank you for being here.
I appreciate you having me on. I can't find this Guster set list, though. Now I need to find it.
It's out there. I promise you. I watched them play at a frat house in Bloomington, Indiana.
I think what probably happened is they had a show that night at a proper venue, and then they showed up later.
I'm sorry. Are you insinuating that some random frat house I went to?
Yeah. Wasn't the primary gig? Yeah, that's exactly right.
Wasn't the main attraction?
Yeah, that's for sure.
How dare you, sir?
That is true. Speaking of bands and frat houses, though, Ryan Odom, now the coach of Virginia, saw Dave Matthews Band at a frat house at his own college, Hampton-Sydney, in like 1992.
Oh,
pretty epic stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's some heavy DMB lore there as well. So, it was a pleasure to be on the show with you, Eamonn. Best of luck with you with the pod. You had great newsletter. Read it all the time. You've been kind enough to reference some of my work. I do appreciate that, and yeah, I'm excited to see what the Basket Under Review guys, your whole team is really cooking up here. So my pleasure to be on, man, and I hope we can cross paths this season before we get to the Final Four. So thanks for having me on.
Right on. Thanks, Matt.